Welcome back, everyone, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BETSPERTS. Well, your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christenson, and joining me, as always, Mr. Andy Molitor. Apologies, we're a little bit late, folks, but we've got a guest. He's a little bit behind, so we figured we'd wait a little bit. How you doing, Andy?
This is my life, people. This is when we record the deep dive, when we do anything, just waiting for Drew. Yeah, he had a bit of emergency. He'll be here in a couple minutes, but yeah, we are gonna. The joke I was making earlier in the week was I was almost betting against Alex because I wanted content. I wanted a game 7, so I'm happy you won your bets. I'm happy you got your funny outrights. So we don't have a game 7. It would have been today. It would have been a Thursday night game, I believe, if not Friday, one of these. But No game 7. There's no hockey. The Olympics really haven't started to truly kick off. There's a few events. Gold Cup, we're waiting until the weekend until get into that. I don't know shit about baseball. There's a little bit of tennis. I'm sure Alex probably bet on some tennis today, but there's not much for sports today. So we're said, well, let's just do all Olympics. Drew and I have been busy this week, so we didn't have a chance to do like a full deep dive. I'm like, well, just come on. We'll go brown bagging it up. You can just rant on about Olympic shit as long as you want. I don't care how long this episode goes. Actually, I do have a haircut on Saturday, but we are gonna and we're doing some other recording this afternoon. But yeah, the Olympics. Are you excited at all? I'm excited because we had a bunch of bets.
Yeah, I like the Olympics. I like the time that it's on. So like this morning I got up and got to watch a little bit of soccer. I like to watch that there's little different variations, like the soccer's U23, so you see some different players. Swimming's fun. I love the track and field events. I like pole vaulting. I think that's really interesting. I watch all the sprints. I watch all the relays. Those are just the best. I don't know what it is I love about watching people run in a circle, but it speaks to me. And we'll see if, and again, the 100-yard dash to me, that's the premier event. That's what I want to see. Who's the fastest man in the world? Can they continue to break that record? And how comfortable can, usually a Jamaican look while destroying some sort of record? It's amazing.
Yeah, just like looking into the camera while you cross the finish line kind of bullshit. It's stupid how fast some people are. I did a 40-yard dash before football season. My junior year, I ran like a 5.2. I just don't have very long legs. I'm never going to be a very fast sprinter. I did win some ribbons in the elementary track meet. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the pomp, the circumstance. Hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have any COVID bullshit. Everybody's fine. If there is any COVID, hopefully it happens to the Japanese team because I've made some Japanese gold medal unders. No offense to the hosts. Completely off topic and maybe a little too political is they should probably stop having this in different places and just everybody should take all their effing money, throw a bunch in the pot, and make it. Greece, fine. Greece doesn't have to pay a dime because they don't have any money anyway. America, China, all the big countries subsidize it. You make a big Olympic village, just have it there every time instead of having countries build all this shit. Go look at Rio. There's shanty towns inside of those soccer stadiums they built. Rio hosts a clay tournament, and they decided to build an entire new tennis complex so they could have hard courts for last time for tennis. The shit they do to have an Olympics is actually stupid. It's good when your city doesn't win the bid. So, and then cardboard beds would never stop me, says Patrick. That is true as well. Some of the stuff is a mess, but yeah, I'm excited. I've made a bunch of bets. Nothing a lot on individual events yet outside of Dong Dong in the men's trampoline, but we'll get to some of that quick here. The overview.
Trampoline. Wow.
Maybe the biggest thing you should take into account, and Drew and I were talking about this. I don't have the old number. It was like 305 or 302 last time. There are more events. So when you're handicapping, the gold medals for the various countries, and you're looking at what did they do last time? What did they do this time? The biggest thing to take into account is the new events. The skateboarding,
surfing, climbing,
surfing,
karate.
The karate they added, the kata, which is like, if you remember the original Karate Kid when they're just doing stuff on the beach and very artfully. It's just a single guy doing karate. Solo karate is the funniest thing in the world to me.
It's probably not funny. It's a phase in karate. I'm trying to remember what movie. I think it's probably a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, but like you get to kata, that's practice, and then whatever the next one up is, you actually fighting people, and that's the big tournament they have that he wins. I can't remember the name of it.
Best of the Best?
But the name of the movie, I think, is the tournament. Booger from Revenge of the Nerds dies in it.
Oh my God, I don't want to see that movie at all. Anyway,
Kumite. Thank you, Dan.
Kumite in the chat, Dan. Thank you. But anyway, yes, there are like 30 some more medals this year. So when you're going to be handicapping the medals that we have, like you say, oh, they only had this many medals. Like, go look. Are you worried about them doing really well at karate, at surfing, at sport climbing? That is why the Japanese thing is higher this year. They are going to have a little bit of a higher medal count based on, just some of the event. It's still too high, I think. But yeah, 206 nations. That is actually a bit of a misnomer. It's actually 200. I'm the one who put these stats together, so I can't yell at anybody. But it is actually 205 nations plus something called Olympic refugees, which means they don't have a country, but they're still. I'm going to dig further into that. I found that today. I just didn't have the time to find that. So, and here he is. Finally, we're framing him up with his gorgeous head of lettuce there. Drew Dinsick, you can hear him giggling. He is finally here to talk Olympics with us. We didn't really mention much. We talked about some Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and the fact that the medal count is higher. But I feel like you did make a bunch of swimming bets. We'll get to that. But most of like what percentage of the bankroll that you have bet on the Olympics right now, Drew, is on medal count?
Of what I will ultimately bet is probably going to be about 25-30%. Yeah. What I have right now, 50. I have about 50% of my stuff into medals, and then about 50% into the first half of swimming. And then I'll probably roll over that half of swimming into more swimming, and then we'll try to pick off some other stuff in week 2, yeah, I mean, I got a couple limit bets on Olympic refugees over. Not really. No.
I didn't see. I was going to say I didn't see that market.
I didn't see a total for Olympic refugees. No. But no, the medal market is probably my favorite way to attack this, because it is a 2-week sweat. Did you kind of go through the some of our past experiences betting the Olympics and why this is so fun?
Well, yeah, and just it can turn on some of these, and if you actually take the time and track everything and get it all organized, sometimes there are things that, like, one event can turn several bets. Like we had the French under
French
and the Canadian over.
Ice dancing.
Yeah, the French ice dancing. We had French under and Canadian over, and like the fact that Scott and Tessa won that turned 2 bets for us. That was massive. I don't think we're gonna have something as high stakes as the ice dancing this time around, but I mean there are a bunch where it's just like if you took some US overs at a big plus number and some Japan unders, there's some sports like Olympic baseball,
yeah,
Olympic softball, where it's like, getting the gold for the US is going to be super important because Japan, and I have Japan unders. So
I did bet Japan under, and I did bet Aussie over gold, and I'm looking forward to a women's tennis final between Barty and Osaka. That market right now is even Steven. Noops, who am I in good shape there? Do you think Barty can pull this through for Team Australia?
It's tough. Osaka's got one of the toughest quarters in the draw. She's down there in the bottom. Podoroska's in there. Badosa's in there. There's a couple other names that I can't think of. Barty's got a pretty manageable quarter. It looks like she's going to get Krejcikova, maybe Pegula there, I think, in the quarterfinals, if I have those right. So I think Barty's looking okay. I mean, the second quarter is tough, but if she's playing decent tennis, she'll be in the final. I have no idea what to tell you about Naomi Osaka. She is coming back after no tennis. We haven't seen her play, and that quarter looks really tough. I mean, her first round match, Shai Zhang, I think she's laying 6.5 games, which is probably about right, maybe a half a game too many, but that match could be close. Zhang is the kind of player that's going to work her if she is not in shape and focus. So I think Barty will get there, but I'm a little concerned about Naomi.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess
that's Japan, best case for us.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know. Right. I mean, if Osaka's out early, because I bet into Japan under 27.5 early. I bet it more on Japan 26.5 as the line has continued to get deflated. That's going to be my biggest sweat among the medals by far. And I couldn't come close to that number without everything going right for Japan, which means Osaka wins gold, which means, Hideki Matsuyama wins gold in golf. Like every little thing has to go right for this.
Kei Nishikori.
Get it. Kei,
run of his lifetime.
I wasn't counting on
That's not happening.
Kei Nishikori, defending bronze medalist, man.
That's
right.
right.
Respect, man. But no, the in reality, the Japan under, you do see in general a huge bump for the home nation because they get to kind of rig the game a little, right? Not only do they have a little bit of home officiating when everything that is judged, because usually, but they usually get a bump from the home crowd. Oh, by the way, there's not going to be crowds this year. They usually do get a bump from like, okay, we get to install our own sports. Well, they pick baseball. That's one gold. You can't juice your gold medal count with a team sport where you get one gold after 2 weeks of playing games, So there's a lot of sort of small things that I think went into kind of inflating this number that really may not come to fruition. And, you go back and you look at Japan's performance in the last, handful of Olympics, even like, I guess their best, the absolute best they did was when it was in Beijing. And that is not a surprise because, of course, Beijing is in the same time zone as them, and you're traveling less, you're more, you're less. What's the circadian effect? Isn't really there.
Circadian rhythms are okay.
Your circadian rhythms are okay, so you're performing near your peak, and you do pretty well. Well, they won 9 golds. It's such a leap to go from where they were to what they're asked to do in this Olympics that I just don't think it's possible. And the AP came out with their projections. They talked to everyone who's an expert covering every sport and came up with their best guess for every single medal that gets awarded. And they had 27 gold medals for Japan. And you know how they got there? With 11 judo medals. 11 judo medals assigned to Japan. And that is really where the buck stopped with me, because 11 medals for judo in Japan would be an absolute smashing record relative to years past, relative to Olympics past, and especially relative to world championships, which were held a couple of months ago. Japan won 6.
How many judo medals are there?
Is
it 11?
15.
Is it 15?
15. So they'd have to win 11 out of 15 for their best case. And the biggest part of that was, and we'll get to world championships and just how much time we've spent looking at world championship results. But and that's the thing. So some of these world championships, they weren't held this year. Some of them weren't even really held last year. They were really early last year. So you're not looking at terribly current results on some world championship results. But like judo is one where we actually have a very good sample and a good example because it was very recently. They won, like 30% of the golds rather than the projected 65, 70.
Yes.
Like if they're, if the run rate is anywhere similar, Japan's best case scenario is like 22 golds. Yeah. Japan under is very juicy right now. Somebody mentioned the US trending, what we have on screen here, 46.5 is something I took at a place that had it at like 2-1. Yeah. There are much better. If you want a less
43, you can get 43.5 for basically even right now. Pretty close.
You can get some lower numbers on the US for sure. I took because I do think they have a very long tail to the over just with the volume of competitors they have. So I took this at like 2-1, but I'd play it at an even money at a couple medals less. Russia was 17, wasn't it? 17.5. I think I might have.
It's going up. Oh yeah, it's not 13.5. Yeah, and in fact, there are places you can get it less juicy at 19.5, and I would still play that over. But these are my favorite. Yeah, these are my favorite looks. South Korea over.
Russia was probably my favorite. Japan second favorite for sure.
Let me run through these and give you my 1 second handicap. South Korea gold over. You get military exemption if you get a gold for South Korea. That little added motivation is all that I needed to know. On top of the fact that you have auto gold in Taekwondo and auto gold in archery. So South Korea over golds is fun. Oh, plus the circadian rhythm thing. If it's working for Japan, it's working for Korea. It's working for Korea. Australia over, again, circadian rhythm thing, same time zone. all those athletes, and in general, Australia underperforms at Olympics in general. That's because they last couple were in Rio, last couple, Europe,
London.
London, no surprises there. And their women's swim program is so strong coming into this Olympics that they could make that number almost themselves. Like I can conceivably find 9 golds for the women's swimming program for Australia, which gets you really, really close. And there are some auto golds for them in kayaking. A couple of other, what are the other random ones for Australia? Do you remember? Cycling. There's a women's cycling gold for them.
So much.
Sailing. I have 3 golds for Australia in sailing. So I think Australia could cruise as long as their women's swim program does not no-show. Australia cruises. Russia over. So
you're not worried about the Australia pool nonsense that people were talking about a little bit?
I brought that up yesterday.
How'd you hear that?
I brought it up.
Well, somebody told me about it yesterday.
I don't think it's true. I think, okay, so just to put a point on this, the Australian trials were held in Adelaide, and the Australian swimmers swam out of their goddamn minds, and one of 2 things is true. Either they're that much better than anyone expected, or the pool was a little shorter than 50 meters. And no one can really tell you what is the actual truth there. A lot of conspiracy that is short pool. But I don't subscribe to that. I think they are just that good. And, you go back to, World Championships in 2019, World Championships in 2017, like they've been coming on. Like, they've been getting better, and they have a couple of women who are at their absolute peak. Titmus and Kaylee in particular look like they are at their peak. We'll get into some more swimming, I'm guessing, in a second. So we'll circle back on this, but I'm not buying into the pool conspiracy theory.
No, I have them down for 14. Like Australia
14.
Gets 14. Yeah.
Okay, I love it. The Russia over is basically like this total was deflated because last Olympics there were so many suspensions and so many that didn't get counted.
Yeah, how'd they do in track and field last time around?
Zero gold. Yeah, 0 gold. So the likelihood that they get a couple of there, and also they have a strong swimming program. On the men's side, I can see them getting 4. On the gymnastics, I can see them getting 5. So this is going to be it's going to be tight at 17.5. I think it was a good over. 19.5 is going to be a little tight, but I still think this Russian team is going to be impressive. And again, you want a conspiracy theory? You want a conspiracy theory that has a little more legs?
Yes,
I do.
The Russian national team has been doping out of their minds during the pandemic because there hasn't been any out of training testing. That I think has legs.
Yeah. It checks
out. I like
out.
that angle.
It checks out. And yeah, they're good. They crush synchronized swimming. They should get a couple wrestling medals.
2 guaranteed in
some
swimming. Yep.
Fencing, I believe, if I had to double check.
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna do some things, and gymnastics. They'll do well in men's gymnastics, especially.
Yep, 100% agreed. So, and that leaves us with the U.S. How are we getting over 46? Mostly on the back of very strong track and field performance. If you watched any of U.S. trials, the swimming was disappointing and the track was exhilarating. They were very, 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 very fast. We're potentially going to dominate in the men's sprinting and the field events. So, surprisingly, usually the Eastern Europeans and Russians are kind of the teams to beat in the field. But some of our field expectation is pretty out. It's pretty bullish. So this could be a really great Olympics for us in week 2. So this is one of those where week 1, maybe you're like, holy smokes, we only have 12. This is a dead nut loser. And then in week 2, they all come in. So obviously our women's gymnastics too. I didn't mention them, but that's like 5 auto.
This is a tough one. I have this again because it was almost 2-1. I think my average price on this was like plus 195 to get 47. But like, if there's an outbreak in COVID, like I actually feel kind of sketchy having some of these overs now. If there's an outbreak and like the U.S. swimming or the U.S. track team, like this is a loss. This is we're
our vaccination rate is way higher though, man.
I would say that's
the thing. We should be And the only under we did bet. How's the vaccination rate in Japan right now?
I don't think it's very good, actually. No, not
They
great.
waited to get their own vaccine, which means they're a few months behind mobilizing everything. And if you go back and read some of the reporting, it's just about the lowest rate of a first world country by a lot.
Yeah. Quick funny story. There is a Japanese swimmer who is expected to win 1 gold, Sato, in the 4 a.m. He's going to win that early. He could have potentially won 3 golds if they had let him train with the Japanese national team. But you know what? They suspended him. And you know why? It's because there were pictures of him with a woman who was not his wife that were put in the tabloids. And that is against the rules for the Japanese national swim team. You get suspension for dishonoring the swim team. And for those reasons, he's probably only going to come home with 1.
You're lucky this isn't like 100 years ago. I saw The Last Samurai. Those people do the swords and stuff when you dishonor the old country there. So yeah, world champ. We already kind of touched on world championships, but like, I think if this were my advice to you, even handicapping it now, like that's the thing. Like these medal bets are going to come down tomorrow. You're not going to be betting into these medal markets anymore. But like, and with tennis, it's different. Tennis, we obviously have a very robust tennis tour for men and women. We have obviously the NBA and other leagues in basketball. For some of these smaller sports, karate, judo, fencing, and when you get to the winter sports in a couple of years, the skiing stuff, the world championships for, a lot of the winter sports as well, like start digging. This is your information. Like, and it's actually pretty readily available. You can check into not only the results, but there's like articles, like people are really into some of these sports, and there's whole articles say, you go look at the results and then you read some articles about it, get some context, like were these just same as anything we do in any sport? Like, did tennis player A actually beat the pants off tennis player B, or was something going on? So dig into the context as well. But yeah, I think outside of that, Drew, what else did you dig into besides
swimming? I'm up to my neck in the deep end of the swimming pool right now. Doing the swimming handicap, and like you mentioned, the past world championship cycles are hugely informative. You had Worlds in 2017, Worlds in 2019, and now it has been 2 years since we've seen real international competition between these athletes. There were some fascinating things that happened in Worlds in 2019. We had a couple of breakout swimmers. Regan Smith set some world records, but then she has faded big time compared to, like, you just look at her again, you look at the times. Her times at the World Championship 2019, you compare them to the times that she swam at trials 2 months ago, and she is very clearly off her peak. So expecting her to go and just, drop a nuke and win golds in backstroke, I think is pretty unlikely. And then the opposite is true of a guy like Caleb Dressel. He's our best hope among the American men's swimming team. He presumably, if this is a fast pool, if there's energy, if there's life, if the coaches and the managers can really kind of bring some energy, we could see Caleb Dressel set some world records here in the 100 fly, 50 free, 100 free. Those are his best events. And he's probably our best chance at a guy getting multiple gold medals. His goal haul is probably peaking at about 4. It's tough for me to see him winning more than 1 of the relay golds. And then on the women's side, of course, the kind of captain, leader, a matriarch is the wrong word, I guess, but the kind of the most experienced swimmer of the team is, of course, Katie Ledecky. And she comes in as the reigning Olympic gold in the 200 free, 400 free, 800 free, right? They've added the 1500 free, where she's the proverbial favorite, right? So she's going to swim those same 4 events in these Olympics, but she is only the favorite in the 2 long ones. The 2 short ones, she is the dog to an Australian swimmer named Arnie Titmus, who is rightfully the favorite in the 400 free. And actually, if you want to kind of get a bellwether of how these Olympics are going to go, particularly for Australia and the US, you need to watch the women's 400 freestyle final. That is going to be on Sunday, and we are going to see Katie Ledecky versus Titmus. And this is going to be one of the most anticipated, one of the most exciting and interesting races because, of course, as we mentioned, Ledecky is the world record holder from the last Olympic cycle. She is the reigning gold medalist, and Titmus almost broke her world record at Australian trials, where she has rumored that she was not fully tapered. which means that you could see her absolutely blow it out of the water. But we know for sure that Ledecky's times from trials were not indicative of what she is capable of. She was doing 6,000 meters a day, swimming through trials, because there was absolutely no question whether or not she was going to make the team in the events that she made the team in, right? She dominated the U.S. in all 4 that she qualified for, and she swam through trials 6,000 meters a day. So it is, she is going to be tapered for the first time in a long time for this Olympics. And we get to learn is she past her peak, or is she capable of doing what we saw from her 5 years ago in Rio, where she was like, it was a joke, where it was like, oh, there's the gold medalist and you don't even see the silver and the bronze on the screen.
Yeah.
Well,
especially in like something like the 8 or the 15,
right,
the longer distance ones. And anybody, like what Drew is, I mean, Drew swam collegiately. Drew understands this, and Drew's bet a shitload of swimming in the last Olympics. But like the taper thing, that is the most interesting thing to me. Is like, I'm trying to even think of a comparison, because like when you get to these qualifying meets, you need to like essentially you're tapering so your body can get to that peak where you're having the most possible energy, the least lactic acid in your muscles, and you can swim your best time. Yeah. And it just, she was in such a no doubt spot to obviously win these, do well and make it in all her events. So she just said, fuck it. I don't need to like take a break from training. Yeah. I'm just going to continue to train like nothing else is happening and just get ready for my best performances to be at the Olympics. So I'm excited for those ones.
Real quick. Many sports use taper. Many sports use this concept. It's basically just rest, right? Like during your training portion of your cycle, you are breaking your body down to its limit day in, day out. And then in the few weeks that lead up to it, you do a little less and a little less and a little less and a little less. You increase your rest a little more and a little more and a little more. And then you are basically like this rubber band that is just ready to explode, right? Like fighting, they do it for sure. Track and running, they do it for sure. Individual sports where you have, one day, one goal, one performance, a single performance that you are keyed on, you see this type of training used pretty regularly. And what's interesting about this, and one of the reasons the United States swimming has always had an advantage over the likes of Australia at the Olympics, is because of our collegiate swimming program, right? We have this deal where you have all these conferences, right? And conference championships happen in like the beginning of March. And you train from November to February, like peak training, as much as you can do at any given day, break your body down to its limit. And then from February to the end of March, you taper down for conference championships. Everybody goes out, swims their absolute fastest they can possibly swim at conference championships. And then there's about a 3-week gap before NC2As, where the fastest people, irrespective of who wins conference championships, qualify and go swim at NC2As. And all of those, the best swimmers we have in America, all of them bring their yardage back up for a week and then do a second taper and then perform even faster at NC2As, right? And so they've all kind of gone through this sort of cycle of double taper, and had their second performance even faster than their first. And that's what you have to do when you comes to trials and Olympics, right? Because you can't risk it and not taper for trials unless you're Katie Ledecky. She's the only person that I know of that like swam through trials and did not taper for trials. You can't risk missing your spot on the Olympic team because you don't have your best performance in that day, because only 2 people make it, right? Yeah. And so everybody on the U.S. Olympic team has gone through this before in college, where they taper for trials, go back up, and then taper for the Olympics, and then perform their best. They don't do that in Australia. The double taper thing has always kind of screwed them up. A lot of them swim their fastest ever swims at trials and then can't repeat it at the Olympics. And so that's historically what has given us an advantage in Olympic swimming, in my opinion. That advantage is waning, number one, because the pandemic completely screwed up college swimming the last 2 years.
Oh, and then, you're telling me.
And then number two, there's been sort of like a European invasion in the U.S. swimming. Like it's like in vogue now to hire an international coach who can identify talent from Europe in like kind of among younger swimmers and bring them over to America and put them through the NCAA system. So if you look at any of the NC2A like final heats, it's like 50-50 now between US and international swimmers, whereas before it used to be just 100%. So everybody has kind of gotten the experience now too, which takes that advantage away from us a little bit. And also the Australians figured this out, and like they kind of came into this cycles like specifically like, we are going to double taper and we're going to do it right, and all of our swimmers are going to hit their taper this time at the Olympics at their peak. And so for those reasons, I think there's a number of swimmers you can bet on. But
this like is like a good sports movie where like the two like bring it on, or like the two teams are just, they're gonna, I don't know, this taper thing makes me think of like, I wouldn't do stuff with my girlfriend for like 2 days before sporting events.
There you
go. Like have that ultimate testosterone built in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know it, man.
I know.
Legs, women, my old swim coach, women weaken legs. Women weaken legs. That's what he used to tell us. I don't know if that's true or not.
It is true.
But here's so I guess, do you have an opinion, Andy, now that I've kind of broken this down between Titmus and Ledecky? Titmus, of course, almost broke the world record at Aussie trials in the 400 free. Ledecky completely swam through it. Do you think she was playing possum and that she can find that kind of champion gear and beat a swimmer who may be kind of on the pinnacle of her best ever, or do you think Ledecky is past peak?
That's where I think Ledecky will win. I think it'll be very close, but I think you didn't even get to see her best time.
No,
and
it's totally unknown.
I think she was hiding it on purpose just because she's like, I'm gonna F this girl. She's gonna lull her into a false sense of security and take her out. I don't know. I'm thinking of like, I almost said like drowned her, but they don't do that. I really doubt any of these will drown. They're all very good swimmers. It sucks that swimming's right away. Track. We'll do some stuff on the deep dive probably next week, or maybe come back here or something. We'll talk some track and field next week. None of that shit even really starts yet. Like it's all, it's a weird cycle. Like swimming and track are kind of separate. They do swimming and then they do track. Obviously soccer and softball have kind of kicked off. Opening ceremonies are tomorrow. I'm pumped. You sound very pumped for. I'm still pumped for swimming.
Yeah,
I'm jacked for all of it. But we'll do more of this. We'll get some more Olympic stuff as we go along. So thanks for joining us today, Drew.
The Titmus Ledecky head to head is one you won't want to miss on Sunday, and like it could affect, like if Titmus loses, that could affect like the whole Aussie women's team. Like that could shake their confidence a little bit because this, like if they're like, oh, we thought we had this one, because and like the betting market, by the way, they opened them about even odds between these two women, and Titmus got bet up to -400, and she's coming down now. Like somebody basically was waiting for this to get to the peak and has been hammering Ledecky. She's been bet from like +250 back down to about +120, +140, depending on where you shop.
Sure. And our friend, the food snob frog, is mentioning they do drown each other in water polo. That is like
that is true.
Like holding each other under the water. Like that looks brutal. I'm not a strong enough swimmer for like. I don't know if I can do a solid 400 right now. Water polo is stupid. Never was great at treading water. So, all right, Drew. Well, we thank you for spending some time with us this morning, talking some Olympics. Thanks to the sponsor, WinBet, where you get your $500 risk-free bets. We're still giving Olympic Yetis away. They have nothing to do with the Olympics. I'm just going to call it an Olympic Yeti because we're at that point of the cycle of calendar. This is Olympics starting, I guess, kind of like if you want to watch the live opening ceremonies, it's like early tomorrow morning. I'm just going to watch it with the family at night. And Twitter has spoken. I asked, what should I grill? I guess I'm just a big stupid idiot. Wagyu. Like 8 people said that immediately. I'm like, oh yeah, like that does make sense. It's in Tokyo.
Good. So yeah, obviously.
Easy squeezy.
We'll catch you guys tomorrow. We'll talk a bunch of NBA, and thanks for joining us. And give me a thumbs up and bless you, Drew.
Thank you.